We're going to go to Greenland live. Our own Tom Dans is there. Tom, walk me through. Why are you in Greenland? Why is it important? What is happening today that this audience, the War Room Posse, needs to know about?
Hey, Steve. Great to be with you. Great to be with the Posse. Coming to you live from the south of Greenland. And we're here because my organization, American Daybreak, and really when I worked for President Trump in the first administration, I was at Treasury, and then I was an Arctic Commissioner. But part of what is really important today in the moment is for Americans and really for the rest of the world to realize how closely intertwined our country has been with Greenland for so long and why it's so important. And so what we're here in the south of Greenland, and you can see the American flag here flying at half staff behind us, we're at the site of the former main base in U.S. base during World War II in Greenland called Bluey West 1. And in particular, we're here, the flag's at half-mast today because it symbolizes the sacrifices that Americans made in this war. And in particular, something that was celebrated yesterday called Four Chaplains Day. We have a bus coming down right here. We're going to pass by us. But this is a little town of 130 people. But at one point, we had 1,400 Americans here running. This is literally carved out of a mountain of rock in Greenland. Greenland, for those who aren't so familiar with it, this is a country, I'm from Texas. This is a country 3 times the size of Texas with about 56,000 souls on it. So it's just an incredibly remote place, but really only about 3.5, 4 hours flight time from the U.S. So this base is kind of what we call the front door, part of North America. Greenland is part of North America. It's the front door on our U.S. East Coast. And particularly when we talk about the sacrifices that were made here, that's Four Chaplains Day. So Four Chaplains Day is a National Day of Remembrance. It occurred yesterday. It recognizes the loss of the U.S. Army transport ship Dorchester, which was torpedoed. It was on its way from New York City to this base here in Narsarsuaq. It was a multi-day voyage. It was torpedoed by a Nazi submarine about 100 miles off the coast. Went down with the loss of 672 men, 659 Americans. If you can imagine, right now when we're standing here, it's minus 5 degrees Fahrenheit. The sun's out. Last night it was minus 20 here. These men went down in 20 minutes in the ocean, right? But there were this is part of the incredible story of heroism here. There were 4 chaplains aboard who had just been, they were newly minted first lieutenants in the U.S. Army, and there were 2 of them were Protestants. There was a Methodist minister, and there was a Reformed Dutch minister. There was a Roman Catholic priest, and there was a Jewish rabbi. And they were essential because they were traveling on a ship. There were 902 men. So this was a commercial ship that had been requisitioned by the war authorities. It was being run by U.S. Merchant Marines. Important. My grandfather, was a U.S. Merchant Marine and actually made this run. He wasn't on this ship, but he sailed back and forth to Greenland during the war and helped build the air base here afterwards. So that's how I come. But these were merchant mariners carrying Army troops, civilians to work here. We had 13 different installations around Greenland that we built up.
Hey, Tom, just hang here for 1 second. We're going to take a break. Tom, I just want to reiterate one more time the links that we've had with Greenland, what happened, why the Dorchester is so important, why that base was so essential in World War II, and kind of the bonding that the American servicemen did with the indigenous people of Greenland, sir.
Right. Yeah. And Steve, when we pick up in World War II is actually a continuation of recognition from the mid-19th century that Greenland was, tied into the United States. And what was really the jumping off point, this is important for people to understand, is that, remember, the U.S. wasn't in World War II until Pearl Harbor. That was the war in Europe, right? We were concerned about North America, our home. But what happened was that Hitler moved into Germany. I mean, Hitler moved into Denmark very quickly, and in 3 hours, on April 9th, 1940, they fell to the Nazis, leaving Greenland, which was a colony of Denmark, completely unattended. That's when.
Well, hang on, Tom. Hang on. Whoa. Hang on. Slow down. Let's be brutally frank. They came into Denmark and they didn't exactly have it. Wasn't Stalingrad, okay? The Danish elites, just like in Norway and in Sweden. I know it. Look, Ireland too. So we're, Ireland, Denmark, Norway, Sweden was neutral, but their elites in the royal family all in with the Nazis. Norway was the worst with Quisling in that crowd. The Danes, not the best. In every country had brave people resisting, but the elites in that country essentially kind of rolled over, did they not? And just left Greenland to itself. That's the correct history. This is what I'm saying. If you look at these NATO countries, back in the days when it mattered, there are a lot of the elites in those countries, kind of the same people hanging out in Strasbourg, the same people skiing in Gstaad, the same people hanging out on the coast of France, south coast of France in Monaco. All those elites in those various capitals living the high life. They weren't exactly with us in taking on the Nazis, were they, sir?
No, and unfortunately, as you say, there were some to be sure, there were some brave Danes and others that got involved afterward, but the king scoffed at the fact that the Nazis might invade. I think he was at the theater the night before watching Shakespeare. I mean, hey, we all love Shakespeare, but there's a time and a place, right? And they cut the military in half in the lead up to the war. So, past his prologue a little bit. Now in Denmark, in Greenland here, you've got four ships that are basically charged with patrolling 1,800 miles of coastline, and even their destroyers had cannons that don't work on it until last year, 2 years into the Russia-Ukraine war. So it's really not.
Look, Greenland's so strategic, particularly in trying to box in the Russian Navy up in Murmansk and Archangel, so they can't come through. The fast attacks and the boomers. Look, we have sonobuoys, but you put a base right there. The issue we have strategically, folks, is the base at Cregan in Scotland is the only base really in Europe that can take nuclear submarines, and that's always dicey. You never know which way the Scots one day are going to be nationalists, the next day they're not. So Greenland is a strategic in President Trump's hemispheric defense. Greenland may be the key that picks the lock. You add Greenland with Panama, and we're going to go in a moment to Larry Taunton and Ben Berkwan and talk about the Darien Gap and talk about USAID being actually opposed to American strategic interests. Tom, before I let you go, the wreathing, all that, just reiterate what you did in President Trump's first term, his first administration.
Yeah, so I was this number 2 international official at Treasury, U.S. Treasury. Little shout out to Secretary Bessent. We have a great team there coming in. So I came in COVID times, but because of my grandfather and our family background here, I wanted to pick up on Greenland and see where that lay. So basically, I got busy with the NSC and the staff there working, on the Greenland issue, which we did to the very last day until we saw him off at Andrews on the 20th. But that was, that was the interregnum. President Trump appointed me to the Arctic Commission, which is kind of the headwaters for the U.S. Arctic policy. I worked on that for a while too.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you. I'll talk to you after the show. I want to get you back on tomorrow. Where do people go? Because the Arctic, when we talk about the Arctic now, that's what we call the new great game, the great game of the 21st century. If you remember, we've talked a lot about the great game of the 19th with this competition between the Russian Empire and the British Empire in Afghanistan and Pakistan around Persia to get a warm water port for the Russians and for the British to protect the British Raj. And the new great game is the Arctic. This is why Canada's going to have to make a decision here because their strongest strategic defense is now the soft underbelly of Canada, which is that Arctic. And Tom, you know it better than anybody. Where do people go to get you on social media, and where do they go to get your website that does this commemoration?
Sure. Best place is really, American Daybreak is a new organization. We're just standing that up. Important. March 29th, we're gonna help sponsor the Super Bowl of dog races. That's how they do it here in Greenland. So we'll hopefully be back then. We're looking to get some Chinooks to fly in the dogs from around Greenland. But I'm on Twitter, Tom Dans CFA for Chartered Financial Analyst. Tom Dans CFA, TOMDANS CFA.
Amazing.